Hello and welcome back to the Magical Dev. My name is Devin, and today we're taking a look at Yisan the Wanderer Bard. Yes, another Yisan Deck Tech update video. You guys have been requesting it. You guys wanted it. You guys eat this stuff up like hotcakes. Let's go ahead and jump on into it. Let's take a closer look at the deck, how I play it, and some of the shenanigans that you can get into. Say hi, Richard. Yisan the Wanderer Bard. As you can see, he is a 3-drop for a 2/3. You can pay 3, 2 colorless and a green, and tap him. Put a verse counter on Yisan, the Wanderer Bard. Search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost equal to the number of verse counters on Yisan. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. His ability is very powerful when you think about it. This is going to get around counter spells. You're treating him onto the field, and no one can really do anything about it. They're going to either have to destroy the creature, or destroy Yisan, or stifle the ability. Because of Yisan's ability, it makes him very resilient, very consistent, and very fast. We run a lot of different creatures that we can tutor for that will get us mana. It'll allow us to exploit Yisan's ability by untapping him and then tapping him again multiple times a turn, and that's very powerful. The problem with that is that we are running mono green and we don't have a lot of ways to stop people from shutting us down. We're very susceptible to board wipes, spot removal. People are constantly trying to get rid of Yisan, get him off the field, get rid of your mana dorks. In the past, I have relied heavily on stacks pieces, things like Tangle Wire, Winter Orb, Root Maze, and those do well if you get them. But we don't have a whole lot of ways to draw in this deck, and so we can't rely too heavily on things like instants and sorceries and artifacts and enchantments. We have to rely on our creatures. This entire deck is built around exploiting Yisan's ability. We want to produce a ton of mana so that we can then activate Yisan's ability multiple times a turn. We have almost half the deck is mana. Half the deck is lands, as well as mana dorks or things that produce mana. And then we have quite a few cards that will allow us to then untap Yisan and tap him again, so that we can activate him multiple times a turn and just flood the board with creatures that will help us win the game. I'm going to go ahead and move some of this stuff out of the way, and we'll take a look. For our lands, I am running 25 snow-covered forests. I have these just because I wanted to snow out the deck. I don't even have an extra planar lens. But I thought it would be cool to be a little different. I guess I'm a little hipster. But those do come in handy with the Mouth of Ranum. Tap it, add a colorless, you can pay 4 and a snow-covered forest, or that can be paid with any snow permanent. Pay the 5, sacrifice it, deals 4 damage to target creature. For some of those pesky creatures, dealing 4 damage is pretty nice. These are in no particular order, but then we do have Cavern of Souls. Choose a creature type, tap for a colorless, and then you can tap to add 1 mana of any color, and cast a creature of the chosen type, and it cannot be countered. I'm probably looking for this early game. A lot of people, when I go turn 2 Yisan, will counter me. If I had this, that would stop it. You could also use this against some of your mana dorks, but this is mostly in there for Yisan. Wirewood Lodge, we have tap, add a colorless to your mana pool, and then you can pay a green and tap it to untap target elf. This is pretty nice. I'm not running too many elves, but I am running a good amount, especially since I can tutor for them, as well as I can tutor for Wirewood Lodge. This comes in handy when I have like Priest of Titania or Elvish Archdruid. I can get a lot of mana off this. This is also a little combo piece with some of the cards we will take a look at later. Windswept Heath and Wooded Foothills. I have previously said that I don't like running these in the deck, but I get it. It's thinning the deck quite a bit. You're getting extra shuffle off of it. I understand. I finally caved. I decided I would throw it in the deck. I think I made a good decision though. So until I need these for another deck, they're going to stay in here. Dryad Arbor here is an awful card. I hate Dryad Arbor so much. There's not much that I can say about this that will be good. The only reason that you have Dryad Arbor in this deck, of course, is that turn 1 Green Sun Zenith, when maybe you don't have a mana dork, just to get my Yisan turn 2. That's what I'm ultimately looking for. If I can't do Yisan turn 1, I'm going turn 2 because we want to come out strong, and Yisan can do that. Turn 2 Yisan is very powerful. Turn 1, of course, is even better, but Dryad Arbor, it's a land creature with summoning sickness. It's just, ugh. Growing Rites of Itlamok, not a land, until it is. When it enters the battlefield, of course, you look at the top 4 cards. You can reveal a creature card and put the rest to the bottom, which is really nice. And then once you control 4 creatures, it flips into, of course, a mini Gaia's Cradle. So it taps for 1 forest, or it taps for a forest equal to the number of creatures you control, which is really nice. Oh, look at that thing. Nice and shiny. Sexy. Good card. I think it's definitely worth it. 3, you can potentially get a creature. It's not hard to get 4 creatures. I mean, I'll cast this, same turn, flip it, instantly benefit. You gotta run a Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. I freaking love this card. Again, nice and shiny. Tap, add 1 colorless to your mana pool, or you can pay 2 and tap it and add any color in combination equal to your devotion. In this deck, we have a lot of devotion. We have a lot of stuff on the field, so this taps for a lot of mana. And then Ancient Tomb. So glad to finally have an Ancient Tomb. I decided to pull the trigger, picked one up. Free Soul Ring, minus the 2 damage, which I keep telling you, the only life that matters is the last one. Until, of course, you die from an Ancient Tomb or Sylvan Library. Good card. Looking for this early game. Helps us get our Yisan turn 1 or turn 2. So that brings us to a total of, what is it, 33 lands? 34 lands, including the Itlamok. Half of this deck is mana. We've got 30-something lands, and then we have all of this mana production. Things that gets us mana. Most of these I'm going to be looking for in my opening hand. These are going to help us get Yisan turn 1, possibly, or turn 2, possibly turn 1. Starting with Soul Ring, because Soul Ring. Mana Vault. Mana Vault's pretty good, just helps us get those 3 mana. Chrome Mox, Lotus Petal, all of these are going to help us get Yisan turn 1. For a good little combination, we could go land into Soul Ring, into Chrome Mox, or Lotus Petal, and that'll get our Yisan turn 1, which is pretty nice. Chrome Mox, of course, you have to imprint a card onto it, and then it taps for the color of the card. Lotus Petal is another 0-drop with Chrome Mox. You can just sacrifice it and add mana of any color. Not really mana dorks, but pretty much work the same. Which you'll see in here, I have a couple cards that aren't mana dorks, like a Finehorn Elf is a mana dork, but they pretty much work the same. So we have our suite of 6. We've got our 6 1-drop mana producers: Finehorn Elves, Llanowar Elves, Elvish Mystic, Birds of Paradise. Oh yeah, look at that. Burial Druid, which only taps for colorless, but that's still turn 2 Yisan. And then Arbor Elf, which untaps a target forest, which is still turn 2 Yisan. Gotta have these staples. I'm looking for those in my opening hand. And then we have Sakura Tribe Scout, Utopia Sprawl, and Wild Growth. These are not really mana dorks, but again, work pretty much the same. Sakura Tribe Scout, we can go turn 1 land, Sakura Tribe Scout, turn 2 land, Sakura Tribe Scout tapping it for a 3rd land, then we get our turn 2 Yisan, and then of course Utopia Sprawl and Wild Growth. Pretty much mana dorks. Get these in our opening hand, turn 1 land into Utopia Sprawl or Wild Growth, turn 2, 2nd land, turn 2 Yisan. So we're going to look at some untappers here in a bit, but one of the comments that I got on my previous deck tech from Cassidy, thank you for commenting, was he was having a hard time deciding on whether or not he wanted to get mana or untappers with Yisan beginning game. I pretty much just told him it depends on what we don't have. If my opening hand has like a couple lands, a Soul Ring, a mana dork, and I have enough mana to produce, say, 6, turn 2 or 3, I'm going to want an untapper. So if I have the mana beginning game, I'm going to want to get an untapped creature, which we're going to look at here in a bit. But if I don't have the mana, of course I'm definitely going to want to get some of those mana dorks. And we can go back later on and get some of those untappers if we really need. I do have mana dorks, or mana producers, all the way up from 1-drops to 4-drops. That just helps us go through and get what we want when we need it. Quite a few times I will start my opening hand with a couple mana dorks, and so I'll tend to like to get Priest of Titania at 2, just because we want a lot of mana. Priest of Titania is very good, especially if you do end up getting like Kyrian Ranger at 1. You can get Priest of Titania, Kyrian Rangers, and Elf, so you're getting untap abilities as well as even more mana. Again, Elvish Archdruid at 3 drops. I'm moving up, maybe I need even more mana. I'll get Elvish Archdruid, and then Karamesh's Acolyte at 4, which is probably our best mana producer in the deck. I tend to skip Elvish Archdruid for Karamesh's Acolyte, just because I would rather get to this. This is there just in case I've gotten my mana dorks, but then someone board wipes, so maybe I'll have to, if they didn't destroy them and they just sent them back to our hand, I can play those, get Elvish Archdruid. Otherwise, I can just skip it and go to Karamesh's Acolyte, because there's a lot of other creatures that we can get at 3 drops that are going to help us probably a little bit more. I tend to get mana, if not untappers, during the first couple of turns, and then once I build up a bit more, I get Karamesh's Acolyte, and I just have all the mana to do all of the things. We've seen mana production. Now let's go on to untappers. Those 2 things are pretty much what this deck revolves around. Getting a bunch of mana so that we can activate Yisan's ability a bunch of times. Like I was saying before, Kyrian Ranger at 1, you can return a force to your hand to untap target creature. Use this ability only once each turn. If I have the mana in my opening hand, beginning game, I'll tend to get Kyrian Ranger because I want to start leveling up Yisan as quickly as possible. I'll get Kyrian Ranger first, then I may go into Priest of Titania, get something else at 3, Runic Armazar, Shaman of Forgotten Ways, and then I'll get Karamesh's Acolyte at 4. Unless I'm trying to take another line like combo off or something. But Kyrian Ranger definitely just depends, like I said, Cassidy, before what you want, what you need, and how you want to play the game. And again, for redundancy, we have Wirewood Symbiote. Same thing. We can untap a target creature, however, we have to bounce an elf with Wirewood Symbiote. This kind of gets into a little combo piece. All of these can be turned into combo pieces, honestly, by bouncing them, playing them. With the right set of cards, a lot of these can be turned into combo pieces, and Wirewood Symbiote helps us a little bit with that. By returning an elf, it kind of saves a step when using like something like Temur Sabertooth. We can just bounce it and then use Temur Sabertooth to bounce this. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah, just lets us bounce an elf to untap a target creature. I don't really like bouncing my elves. Maybe I can go back later. Someone got rid of my Kyrian Ranger, I can go back and get this. At 2 drops, I do have Scribe Ranger. This is really nice. Maybe I don't have the mana in my opening hand. I'll go ahead and get a mana dork. And at 2, I can get Scribe Ranger, which is really nice because then at 3, I can get Elvish Archdruid or Karamesh's Acolyte, which is even better. And then we have mana as well as an untapper, and this is just nice. Flash, Flying Protection from blue, return a forest to untap target creature, and you can only use this once each turn. So I have mana dorks from 1 to 4, and then I have untappers from 1 to 2, which seems to be enough. I wouldn't mind having one at 3, but as far as I know, that doesn't exist, so we just have to stay with Scribe Ranger. Argothian Elder. This comes in handy, especially if you have things like Nykthos or Itlamok, Cradle of the Suns, even Ancient Tomb. You can do a lot with it. It produces a lot more mana than if you were to have just the 1 tap. I generally won't get him unless I'm really hurting for mana, but still pretty nice card. Seedborn Muse, of course, is fantastic. The quicker you can get to Seedborn Muse, the quicker you will win the game. Being able to untap all permanents during each other player's untap step is really good. Activating Yisan once is nice. Being able to do it twice with Kyrian Ranger, Scribe Ranger, and then doing it all on everybody else's turns. When you play Seedborn Muse, pretty much 1 rotation goes around and you're going to win the game. You're going to have what you need after you play Seedborn Muse. And then that's pretty much it for our creatures that untap. And now we're going on to our enchantments and artifacts. Quest for Renewal here. I recently added this back into the deck. A lot of people actually run it. It's pretty nice. I didn't really like it at first, but you can pretty much get the counters on this the turn that it comes out. For 2, anytime you tap a creature, you put a quest counter on Quest for Renewal. Once you have 4 more counters on Quest for Renewal, you pretty much untap all your creatures during everyone else's untapped step, which is really nice. Not as good as Seedborn Muse, but still very nice. And then 1000 Year Elixir. You can pay 1, untap target creature. This lets us untap Yisan, untap mana, whatever we need. And then of course, you can activate abilities of creatures as though they had haste. This is nice when you're leveling up Yisan, when you're getting your mana producers, especially Keramatra's Acolyte. Put her on the field, you're instantly able to tap her for a bunch of mana. And then you get a couple of Yisan activations off of this alone, which is really nice, not including everything else that we've got along the way. And Illusionist Bracers. This is not an untap ability in itself, but this does let us exploit Yisan's ability. We can put this on our Gilthean Elder and untap even more lands, but generally we're going to put this on Yisan and get a couple of creatures at once. You can even do the untap shenanigans where you tap him at 2, leveling him up to 3, untap him with Kyrian Ranger, tap him again, going up to 4, and instead of getting 2 4-drops, you're getting 4 4-drops, just with Illusionist Bracers. Fantastic card. This is very good. I wish I had some Artifact Tutor in this deck because I would get this all the time. As you can imagine, with all of the mana production that we're getting and all of the Yisan exploitation that is happening, we're gaining a lot of hate. That brings us to our next category here of ways to slow down our opponents to kind of combat some of the negative effects, ways to protect ourselves, ways to destroy our opponent's things, and stacks pieces. First off here we have Swiftfoot Boots. I was previously running Lightning Greaves just because I really liked the 0 equip cost, but I have since switched it out for the Hexproof and Haste, as I can still target my creatures with this. I did run into quite a few issues with Lightning Greaves where I'd have to continuously unequip it and equip it again. Swiftfoot Boots, it definitely works a little bit better. The 2-in-1 is fine. We have so much mana production in this deck, paying the extra 1 mana does not really matter. Then we have Sylvan Safekeeper, one of our first tutorable protection cards. We can sacrifice a land, target creature I control cannot be the target of spells or abilities this turn, which is really nice, especially with Yisan. When I have Yisan on the field, again, I like to respond. I'll cast Yisan, and once it gets back around to my turn, I usually don't do anything. If no one has tried to get rid of it then, I will of course pass turn. I will not activate Yisan on my turn, and I'll just wait till something happens. And at that point, usually people want to get rid of it. And so I'll respond by paying the 3, and then pulling this guy out. I will sacrifice a land, it cannot be the target of spells or abilities, and people tend to get pretty salty about that. It's really nice being able to just wait and see what happens, because a lot of times people don't really know what's in the deck, and so by responding to a kill spell, you pull this out, and they're like, oh well, that's really great. Temur Sabertooth, this has a couple of different functions. You can pay 2, return another creature I control to my hand, and he gains Indestructible. The Indestructible does not really matter. Being able to return another creature to my hand is what we really want. Again, Cassidy, this is probably going to be one of the biggest ones for board wipes. Whether it's someone just trying to kill your creatures, giving them -1 counters, whatever. This is what we will use in those situations. If someone is board wiping with like a Cyclonic Rift and they're just bouncing everything to my hand, I don't care. I really don't care about Cyclonic Rift. Generally, the turn after I'm Cyc Rifted, I will just throw up on the board again. By that point, I've probably built up to a point where I have a lot of things on the field, I have a lot of mana, and if someone Cyc Rifts me, I can easily just put that all back on the field in 1, at latest 2 turns. But Temur Sabertooth is also a combo piece. Again, return another creature I control to my hand. If I have something like Paradox Engine, I can bounce a Mana Dork to my hand, like a Llanowar Elves, but then I also have Keramatra's Acolyte on the field. I can easily tap Keramatra's Acolyte for 10 plus mana, tap the Mana Dork for a mana, then bounce the Mana Dork with Temur Sabertooth, cast it again. If I have Paradox Engine, everything untaps, so I'm just getting infinite mana, infinite untaps. I'm able to do pretty much whatever I want. And that's not the only thing that you can do. You can do a lot with Temur Sabertooth, being able to bounce a creature. In this deck, like I said, so many of the cards can be utilized as combo pieces, and Temur Sabertooth is one of those. So those were a few protection cards. Here we have pretty much just destroy cards. It's going to be all destroy target artifact or enchantment, as well as destroy target permanent. Natural State is a new addition. 1-drop, instant, destroy target artifact or enchantment with converted mana cost 3 or less. This comes in handy in a lot of situations. A lot of the combo decks that you will see run a lot of artifacts that are 3 or less. And then again we have Nature's Claim, pretty much the same exact thing, except they gain 4 life, which again the only life that matters is the last one. Then we have good old Caustic Caterpillar. This is our first and only real tutorable creature for destroying target artifact or enchantment, which is fine. When it comes in handy, it really comes in handy. You can get this early game, you can get it later game with things like Woodland Bellower, or you've been board wiped and your opponent has built up a bit of a board state. Again, play Yisan, get Caustic Caterpillar, and get rid of something that they really like. But 1-drop, 1/1, you can pay 2, sacrifice it, and destroy target artifact or enchantment. And then here we have Frozen Grip with Split Second, again, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Are you seeing a theme here? Just good card. I like this card. Split Second makes it really nice. Free drop, kind of heavy, but that Split Second definitely makes up for it. And last, but certainly not least, we have Beast Within. Probably one of the better destroy spells just because it's destroy target permanent. Get rid of anything that you want. And of course they get a 3/3 green beast creature token, but who cares. And then here we have a few more of our kind of stacks pieces, control pieces, I guess. Phyrexian Revoker at 2, tutorable, with Yisan of course. When it enters the battlefield, you name a non-land card. Activated abilities of sources with the chosen name can't be activated. This is really good for those combo pieces, for some pretty nasty commanders. Manglehorn here, your opponent's artifacts enter the battlefield tapped, which is very detrimental. A lot of artifacts, a lot of people playing artifacts rely on those coming onto the battlefield and being able to use them that turn, and so forcing them to come in tapped just slows them down that much more, at least by a turn. And then you get the bonus added effect of destroying a target artifact when it enters the battlefield. And again, it's tutorable at 3. So maybe instead of getting Elvish Archdruid, someone by then probably has some sort of nasty artifact. So I'll grab this and get rid of it, and then hurt everybody else. And we have Thought-Knot Seer. This is just kind of a good card. I don't use it too much, but when I do use it, it is very nice. When he enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals his hand, or her hand, and I choose a non-land card and exile it, and then when he leaves the battlefield, target opponent draws a card. You want to try getting rid of that board wipe, maybe you want to try getting rid of that counter spell. Again, we're not really too worried about counter spells when it comes to getting creatures with Yisan, but mid to late game we're starting to cast more things, and so it would be good to see what your opponents have. Scavenging Ooze, 2 for 2/2. Doesn't really matter, we're going to be getting this with Yisan, but you can pay 1 forest, exile a target card from a graveyard, and if it was a creature card, he gets +1/+1 and you gain a life. This is just really good against recursion decks especially. There's a lot of decks out there, not even just strictly recursion decks, but a lot of decks rely on maybe getting something to the graveyard and benefiting from some sort of effect from it going to the graveyard or being in the graveyard. Possibly them wanting to get it back from the graveyard. This just really helps. In response, again, you can pull this out and get rid of it. Here I'm running Bind. This is a new addition to the deck. Nice little counter spell in green. It is counter target activated ability. Oh my gosh. Cats, what are you doing? And you draw a card. So it's nice, not a lot of people are going to be expecting you to counter their activated ability. Again, this would be good against my buddy's Mariek deck. A lot of commanders use activated abilities. A lot of artifacts, a lot of things use activated abilities. And here we have a way to control your opponent's creatures, whether that's their commander or something else, maybe something that's beating you down, infect creature, combo creature. A lot of this is going to be based off of combos, just because that's what I play against in my play groups at bases. A lot of it's combo. This definitely just comes in handy, especially putting this on a Commander can be kind of nasty, though they do have the option to block and kill it. So then it just goes back to the command zone, which is why I like Song of the Dryads even better. It's an enchant permanent for 3 instead of 2. Enchanted permanent is a colorless forest land. This is a bit harder to get rid of than the Lignify. It just kind of sits there and it's now a land. Back in the day, I wasn't running as many artifact and enchantment destruction spells, and so I've had people put this on Yisan and I've literally just been shut down. I haven't been able to do anything. Then we have Silent Gravestone. Again, a lot of decks rely on graveyard play. That sounds bad, not like that. We're not necrophiliacs or anything, but graveyard recursion. Cards in graveyards can't be the targets of spells or abilities. And you can pay 4 and tap it, exile Silent Gravestone and all cards from all graveyards, and then of course you draw a card. Okay, I'll let you out. Some of these cards may not work as well for you if you're wanting to build this type of deck. This is heavily based on just the play groups that I play in, and that's exactly what you're going to want to do. A lot of the decks that I play against are heavy combo, a lot of heavy recursion, and so Silent Gravestone definitely comes in handy. Then of course we have the nasty Winter Orb. People absolutely hate this card. As soon as you play this card, people hate you. They no longer want to play with you, they no longer want to be your friend. But this deck is supposed to be mean. This deck is supposed to win. That's what I want this deck to do. This card pretty much does not affect me. It's 2. Players cannot untap more than 1 land during their untap phase. With as much mana that I am producing in this deck through all of my mana production with my rocks and creatures, this does nothing. Winter Orb just slows down your opponents quite a bit, and it lets you build up that much faster. Moving on from there, we have probably my favorite enchantment of the game, Hall of Gemstone. This is a gem. It really is. During each player's upkeep, that player chooses a color. Until end of turn, each mana producing land produces mana of the chosen color instead of its normal color. This is another one that does not affect me pretty much whatsoever. But it does shut down my opponents, especially my opponents that are playing anything more than 2 colors. During my turn, of course, I'm going to choose green. That hinders everybody else from responding that's not playing green. And in my play group, there are quite a few of the combo players that do run green, but most of their spells are blue or black or red. This allows me to cast things more freely. If I'm choosing green, I know I'm not going to be getting countered. During their turns as well, they have to choose a single color. So if they're running a 3-color deck, they're now limited to 1 color during that turn. This card just slows them down. It really makes them think about what they want to do. And with this card, it really doesn't matter what they choose, because again, I have so much mana production in this deck that if they choose blue, black, purple, yellow, whatever, I'm still going to be able to do whatever I want. I'm going to be able to activate Yisan, I'm going to be able to cast spells, so Hall of Gemstone is just very good. I love this card, I don't know why more people play it, so hopefully we can get the word out there. Hall of Gemstone, fantastic card. Also, it's 2 greens, so that helps with our devotion. Just such a good card. Mirage, I would recommend playing this card. It is very detrimental to your opponents. So now that we've seen the mana that we can produce, the ways that we can untap Yisan, and the ways that we can slow down our opponents, we need better ways that we can get to those. We do have Yisan that can get the creatures, but we don't really have ways that can get our instants and sorceries and enchantments. So here we have ways to look at the deck, draw cards, as well as tutor for creatures, which will give us more options with Yisan. Let's go ahead and start with pretty much top deck manipulation. Sensei's Divining top 1, you can pay 1, look at the top 3 cards of your library and put them back in any order, and then of course you can tap it to draw a card. This is really good, just being able to see what is coming up, what's on the top of your deck. If I have a pretty good top deck, then I may not want to Yisan. I will wait until I can draw that card and then I'll Yisan. And then this also lets me draw if I really want to. Sensei's Divining top, just a good card, we all know what it does. From there we have Sylvan Library, again letting us get an additional 2 cards each time we draw if we so choose. Of course we have to pay 4 life for each card. Again, the only life that matters is the last one, so I'll tend to YOLO with this and just draw a bunch of cards, which is really nice. It thins the deck, it helps us get there that much faster. And then next up we have, of course, Mary's Guile. This is a new addition to the deck. I got this recently and I'm super happy with it. It does not let us draw, but it does let us look at the top cards of our library, top 3 cards of our library, and of course put them back in any order. That is very good. Again, just deck manipulation. This lets us look to see if we have any of our enchantments, instants, and sorceries, because of course we can get the creatures with Yisan. So we're looking for all the cards that we can't tutor with these cards right here. From there we have some additional draw. We have Shaper's Sanctuary here, which of course is an enchantment. And whenever a creature I control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, I may draw a card. Again, we're drawing a lot of hate in this deck, especially with Yisan. Our mana dorks early game, people are wanting to get rid of our things. They're wanting to shut us down, and that's what I tell people. You know, if you get rid of my mana dorks at the beginning of the game, if you get rid of those just outright, I'm going to be shut down. It's going to take me a bit longer to then build up again. So Shaper Sanctuary just helps us when they do target our creatures, especially Yisan, especially our mana dorks. We can then draw from that and kind of benefit from the negative. It's bittersweet symphony, that's life. Elvish Visionary is a tutorable draw spell. Enters the battlefield, draw a card. Kind of nice. This is in here for one of those combos. Again, I can bounce this with Tamer Sabertooth or Wirewood Symbiote. I can then continue to cast it and then kill people with Psychosis Crawler, which we will take a look at here in a second. But Elvish Visionary just kind of helps us get that draw. We can bounce it to draw more, and then when we really need it to, it can be a nice little combo piece. Also a nice F&M promo. Hey girl, how you doing? Most of our draw spells here are tutorable, which is really nice. Runic Armazar, of course, is a 3-drop. Whenever an opponent activates an ability of a creature or land that isn't a mana ability, I may draw a card. Again, this is Magic. There's a lot of activated abilities in this game. Here's a nice little mental game piece. Your opponent's going to have to decide on whether or not they want you to draw, or if they really need to do that activation right now. And we have Regal Force. Regal Force is a fantastic card. I love this card so much. I don't believe I have any other 7-drops in the deck currently. I used to run Hornet Queen, but Regal Force is the only one. Just a fantastic card. 7-drop doesn't really matter. We're cheating him in with Yisan. By the time we get to Regal Force, we're going to be drawing 10+ cards. Regal Force is just so nice. You draw a card for each green creature you control, and drawing that much is going to draw us into a lot of good cards. So not only do we have Tutor with Yisan, but we have some redundancy tutors in here for creatures and lands. We've got, of course, Sylvan Scrying, which is going to let us get our Nykthos, Wirewood Lodge, Ancient Tomb, Cavern of Souls, whatever we want. This one does put it to your hand, and then you shuffle your library. 2-drop sorcery. With that we have Crop Rotation, which I kind of like better. It's a 1-drop, search for a land and put it to the field, but you do have to sacrifice a land in order to do this. However, I don't really care. Like I said, most of my mana production is in my creatures. I don't really need a whole bunch of lands. And I have actually won games with 0 lands in play, just from bouncing them with Scribe Ranger, Carrion Ranger. So I'm not too concerned about my lands. And Crop Rotation just lets us get something even better, again like the Nykthos or the Wirewood Lodge. And now here we have a lot more creature tutor. Summer's Pact is 0-drop. This is going to let me get Craterhoof, Regal Force, Psychosis Crawler. Did I say Seedworm Use? But yeah, it just gives us those options. You know, we have the tutor with Yisan, but like I said, most of the time we're limited to one creature. And sometimes I'm struggling on what I want to get. And so if we have some of these tutor creatures, I can get both. Maybe I can get the Seedworm Muse as well as the Psychosis Crawler if I have one of these. And one of the viewers from the previous deck tech that I did was actually asking me why I prefer to cast Craterhoof from my hand than level up Yisan and cheat him into the field. Because I've always said it, you know, I like to cast Craterhoof from my hand instead of leveling up Yisan. With Yisan, he is very fast, but it does take a while to level all the way up to 8. I can win the game a lot sooner. You can flood the board very quickly just by leveling up to like 5. If I have a creature tutor, I'm going to grab Craterhoof. Of course, casting Craterhoof from my hand does allow players to counter me. With this deck, we're already taking a chance with things like board wipes and spot removal. And so I'm just taking the chance. You know, I could level up Yisan to 8, but I could also win the game that much earlier. So that's why I like to cast Craterhoof from my hand. I believe it was Toxic Pickle. I think that asked that, and that's pretty much why. Just because Yisan is fast, you can level him up pretty quickly, but it does take a while to get to 8, and so I can win the game a lot sooner. And if I really need to, if I don't want to take a different line and combo off, do some of the bounce shenanigans, I can grab Craterhoof. People may not really be expecting it, because some of these put it to my hand, some of them do put it to the field. But people may not be expecting that. They're expecting you to level up to 8 and cheat Yisan, or cheat Craterhoof onto the field. It pretty much just catches people off guard, and people really aren't expecting it. And so I kinda like doing it better that way. Here we have the Green Sun Zenith. Like I said, this is very good for that turn 1 Dryad Arbor. If I have this in my opening hand and I don't have a Mana Dork or something, that Dryad Arbor definitely comes in handy. But if I do get this in my game, and I don't need the Dryad Arbor, I'm probably going to be getting my Regal Force or Seedborn Muse. Probably Seedborn Muse, especially if it's earlier game. I'm going to get Seedborn Muse with this, because again, like once you get Seedborn Muse, the game is pretty much yours. The faster you can get to Seedborn Muse, the more you're going to be able to level up Yisan, and by one rotation, you're going to be winning the game. And then, of course, it shuffles back in and gives us a chance to get something again. Natural Order, new addition to the deck, 4-drop. I'm not going to read it this way, but basically you can search your library for a creature card, put it to the field, and then you discard a creature card from your hand. Very good card. Very good. 4 for any creature to the field. And that brings us to my favorite tutor of the deck, Defense of the Heart. This is one that I have not seen a lot of people play. Anybody play, actually. I hadn't even heard of this card until my buddy Jake told me about it. I read it and I was blown away. This is such a good card. For 4, during your upkeep, if one of your opponents controls 3 or more creatures, sacrifice Defense of the Heart, search your library for up to 2 creature cards, put them into play, then shuffle your library. When I'm playing in a group of 4 people, including myself, if not more. Chances are one of those opponents is going to have at least 3 creatures, and that's going to allow you to get 2 of any creature. Combo piece, Craterhoof, Seedborn Muse, the usual, Shaman of Forgotten Ways. And here we go to our tutorable tutors. Fierce Empath, Woodland Bellower. Fierce Empath, of course, when it comes into play, you can search your library for a creature with converted mana cost 6 or more, reveal it and put it to your hand, and then shuffle your library. Just a really nice card. I'll tend to get Craterhoof with this if I think that I can win the game a lot sooner. If I have a good board state, I'll grab Craterhoof with Fierce Empath and just dominate the field. I do like to do the 1-2 punch of Fierce Empath into Woodland Bellower if I'm just trying to flood the board a bit more. Woodland Bellower does go to your hand, but it's not much to cast it. You can produce a lot of mana, so again, Yisan into Fierce Empath is into Woodland Bellower. For 9 mana, you're getting 3 creatures to the field, and generally they're going to be some pretty powerful creatures. I tend to get Shaman of Forgotten Ways. I don't really like to get Shaman, which we're going to take a look at here in a second, but I don't like to level up and get Shaman that way. I'll go back for Shaman, because it lets me see how the game has been going, and depending on the creatures in the field, I'll grab Shaman, or I'll grab more mana. Maybe I'll grab it on Tapper. Just depends. But some pretty nice tutorable tutors. Here we have Eternal Witness and Duplicant. I wasn't really sure where to put these, which category to put them under. But Eternal Witness, enters the battlefield, return a card from your graveyard to your hand. That's pretty good. I don't play with this one a whole lot. It doesn't come up very often. Because usually if someone gets rid of a creature, I have another one that I can replace it with. This was kind of in there for the combination with like Vitalize. There was a weird combination where you could just tap all of your creatures for mana, cast Vitalize to untap it, cast Eternal Witness to bring back Vitalize, bounce Eternal Witness with Temur Sabertooth, and pretty much repeat, and just gain infinite mana that way. It's kind of a janky combo, but fun to do. It gets you infinite untaps, infinite mana. Duplicant is one of those that kind of helps you keep your opponent's board state clear of some big nasty creatures, maybe some sort of like combo creature. I don't know. A lot of people run this. I'm not too sure about it. I may end up taking this out, but oh yeah, look at all these. It's actually not that many. But here we have pretty much our win conditions and combo pieces. Staff of Domination, just a pretty much combo piece. If you are able to cast Staff of Domination without being countered, you're gonna win the game. Infinite life, infinite taps, untaps, infinite draw. I mean, what else do you need? Anything that taps for more than 5. Karamesh's Acolyte, Priest of Titania, Elvish Archdruid. As long as it taps for 5 or more, you're gaining infinite everything. You need 3 to untap target creature as well as untap Staff of Domination. So generally, you'll cast Karamesh's Acolyte or you'll cheat Karamesh's Acolyte onto the field. With Staff of Domination, you proceed to go infinite mana, gain infinite life, draw your deck, cast Craterhoof, and trample over everybody. Here we have Umbral Mantle, pretty much infinite mana until you look a little bit closer. This creature gets +2/+2 until the end of turn. So if you put this on Karamesh's Acolyte, you can proceed to go infinite mana as long as it taps for 4 or more, and it also gets +2/+2 each time. So you're giving it infinite mana, you're gaining infinite mana as well as giving it infinite power and toughness, and infinite untaps. So you can put this on any creature that taps, give them infinite power and toughness. You have infinite untaps with Yisan, level up to your heart's content, and then they all have, of course, infinite power and toughness, if I didn't say that already. They don't get trample, but usually you're going to have enough creatures on the field that you can proceed to just attack out. Your creatures aren't going to die. Even if one creature goes through, your opponent will die a horrible, painful death. And then Paradox Engine, I did actually have this in the untap category, but I switched it to the combo category because it is definitely a combo piece. Once you cast Paradox Engine, it's pretty much game over. You're going to be able to gain a lot of mana this way. It may take a little while. Sometimes with Paradox Engine, it's kind of a slower combo. You kind of have to search for it as you go. But Paradox Engine, definitely a good card. Lets you untap all non-land permanents. Yisan, of course, mana producers. And then proceed to pretty much win the game. Here we have Psychosis Crawler. This is pretty much strictly a combo piece for those bounce shenanigans with like Elvish Visionary or Regal Force. His power and toughness is equal to the number of cards in your hand, so he alone can attack for quite a bit. But we're looking at the whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life. So if we can go like infinite mana, infinite bounce, we can bounce Elvish Visionary or Regal Force and just kill everybody. Craterhoof, like I said, is going to be what most people are going to think of when they see this deck. They're going to say, oh, he's going to level up, get Craterhoof, and try and kill me that way. So I have a while before he gets there. Which is exactly, again, why I like to cast it from hand. I can level up to, like, say 5, get a good board state, and then proceed to cast this, which will take people off guard. They're not expecting it. They may not have held up mana or a counter spell for it. Most of the time, you're going to be able to cast this and proceed to kill everybody. Tramplehoof? What? Craterhoof. Enters the battlefield, gives each creature +X/+X, where X is the number of creatures you control, and they gain trample. He himself has haste. Craterhoof is pretty much a secondary, even third win condition in this deck. You really don't need it. There's a lot of other ways that you can combo off. And so he's there just in case. Maybe you got shut down, maybe you didn't get exactly what you wanted, but you still have quite a few creatures on the field. Go ahead and get Craterhoof and proceed to trample over everybody. After Craterhoof, we have my favorite card of the deck. Oh, Shaman of Forgotten Ways. This is single-handedly probably the best win condition in this deck. 3 for a 2/3, you can tap it, add 2 mana in any combination of colors to cast creature spells. And then, which is good, I mean, that's cool. We're not really concerned about casting creatures though. We want his Formidable. If you have a total power of 8 or greater amongst creatures you control, As long as you can pay 11 and tap it, each player's life total becomes equal to the number of creatures he or she controls. This will just outright kill players, especially at bases where I play against a lot of the combo decks. They're not creature heavy. They're relying on a few creatures with artifacts to combo off. And so it's happened a majority of the time where I've had a full board of creatures and my opponents have had 2, 3 creatures out, maybe 4. It's very rare that they have more than that. And at that point, the game is just over. I have killed a lot of people outright with this card alone just because they have had no creatures. It's such a fun way. I freaking love Shaman of Forgotten Ways. It's just a fun win condition. I like using Shaman of Forgotten Ways to win the game. Other people, of course, do not. Anyway, this deck is just something else. I hope you guys liked the video. This deck can be built so many different ways. This deck started out as an Azuri deck. It was pretty much only elves, and I was using Yisan to find all my elves to then just trample over everybody using Azuri's ability. And now it's what it is today. This deck will of course be in the description below on tappedout.net. Go check it out. Give me some ideas for cards that you like. If you liked the video, let me know down below. Give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give it a thumbs down. Also let me know. Tell me how much I suck. Don't forget to check back for some Breath of the Wild content. I've been doing a Let's Play with Breath of the Wild, which is pretty nice. Also, oh yeah, the reason there wasn't videos the past couple weeks is because 2 weeks ago, it was actually my birthday, and I just didn't find the time to make a video. And then last week, I made this video, and I hated it. It didn't turn out very well, so I decided to remake it. I remade the video. Something happened with the audio where half the video was completely cut off, and now this is the third time I'm making the video. So I've put a lot of time into making this video. If you appreciate it, definitely give me a thumbs up. Like the video. Subscribe for more. Definitely helps out, lets me know that you guys like what I'm doing. And yeah. Oh, also, for my birthday, I ended up giving myself a little present. If you don't know what this is, you should still check back because I think you would like the awesome videos. Have a good night. Have a good day. Whatever you're doing. Keep on playing Yisan, the Wanderer Bard, because he is fantastic. Let me know how you guys built your deck. Go check it out on tappedout.com, .net, .org. Until next time, keep on playing Magic, and I will see you in the next video. Why am I doing this? I'm just messing up the freaking... Oh, they're all upside down now? What the heck am I doing? I'm gonna stop. Also, Prime Speaker Vanavar sucks.